Welcome inside the RX Muscle Studios in New York for another episode of Iron Debate. I'm your host, Cedric. Glad you can join us on this Friday afternoon, 1 week after the Arnold Classic that took place last weekend in Columbus, Ohio. We are joined by some of the brightest minds in the industry to help break down what took place last week at the 2016 Arnold Classic. We're going to go all the way out of the West Coast first and start off with a man who emceed the event and did a phenomenal job at that, Lonnie the Swami Teper. Lonnie, how you doing today?
I'm doing well.
We go out to see Lonnie Teper ready to go. We've had Lonnie on many times on this show. Lonnie has been instrumental in previous contest coverages, and of course, this past Arnold, he was the MC. We now go down to South Carolina and meet the man they call Boss Number 2, John Romano. John, your initial reactions on everything that took place last week at the Arnold Classic?
Reaction was all of you guys owe me an apology.
Why?
Because I was right. I'm the guy who predicted Kai was going to win. Everybody's saying, "Oh, he can't do it. The guy's head's not in it." I mean, play the tape. It's pretty evident. Johnny, play the tape.
Johnny, you should have that clip prepared. John calling it out and calling it out correctly. We go now to Portland, Maine, and meet the man they call the Technician, who assisted us greatly with all the contest coverage from the 2016 Arnold Classic, Chris Aceto. Chris, how you doing today?
Hey, if we're gonna, stick by predictions, play the tape. I said that Compton's gut would be hanging down to his knees, and I was right. And I sent a picture. I told Dave actually, and I told that Cedric would beat Kai, and what my impression was, he would beat him in a bodybuilding contest. And if you look at the score sheets, or if you leave prejudging at least, Kai did beat him. Cedric did beat him. So those are two predictions, John.
Well,
a belly that wouldn't go away. Well, that's why we're having the fucking show, dude, because it's so controversial. How's that?
Save that for the first topic as we introduce the man with the all things final word, Dave Palumbo. Dave, this is what we wanted to have 1 week after the Arnold Classic.
Yeah, we kind of missed having John Romano out there because I thought John was going to be part of the reporting team, and he's too busy moving. He's between countries. He's the man without a country, and now he's trying to get back to the United States. I thought he permanently left us, but we got him back, and he's got a very distinctive beard. I'm trying to think of what movie star you look like, John. You look like someone. It's driving me crazy. What do people tell you resemble?
Bluto from Popeye.
That is classic.
Billy Bob Thornton. How about that one?
Not during the Angelina Jolie period.
No.
Yikes.
The new one.
Yeah, the new one. That's cool.
Let's get to the topics. Again, there was controversy, and we're going to dive right into it. So the first topic of debate, who deserved to win the Arnold Classic? Was it Kai Greene or was it Cedric McMillan? So John Romano, you got the outside view of the show. We're going to go to you on this one first. In your opinion, who deserved to win the show? We'll get to the posing round later on, but in your eyes, who deserved to win that contest last weekend?
Kai Greene. Period. Deserved to win. Now, there's going to be arguments over that because everybody's going to say Cedric deserved to win, but they instituted new rules, and the posing counted 1/3. Yeah, Kai's gut was sticking out, but he had a lot of other good body parts. So if you take the posing and you take the rest of it, you put it together, he was the guy that got the trophy, and I believe rightly so. We can argue with it all day long, but the bottom line is he won. I was right.
Johnny, you're going to have to pull the clip at some point. Chris Aceto, let's go over to you. You had some very strong opinions in the wrap-up show. Who, in your opinion, won this contest?
Well, which wrap-up show are you talking about?
Let's go to the one right after
and which contest are you talking about? There were actually 3 different contests, it seems. There was like the prejudging, and then there was like the comparison. That was like another contest, and then there was like the posing. If you look at the 3 parts, here's what I had. I had Cedric winning the prejudging. I think that people who you talked to after the prejudging almost exclusively were surprised that Cedric was handily winning the prejudging. I would actually, I disagree with Steve Weinberger when I saw that video. I actually had in terms of the prejudging, I had Cedric actually winning the front double. He had Kai winning the front double and Cedric winning all of the poses. And then the second contest, interestingly, is when they came out at night and they lined up 6 people. Because if you remember, in the prejudging, it didn't really become evident who was really winning until the last call of prejudging, when you put Kai directly next to Cedric, when you had them split in 5 and 6 guys on the podium. It looked like Kai was going to win the show, and that was like the feel and the buzz. But when you compare them side by side, last call, things changed. When they all came out at night, they did their quarter turns, etc. Kai was obviously a lot harder than prejudging, and I gave Kai almost. I think. I can break him down pose by pose, but I gave Kai that section of the contest where they did their quarter turns, a front double, side chest, the whole 9 yards. So I thought Kai would pull out the posing and that would be it. But when they called him out the last call out again of the night, I don't like to do it this way, but I gave Cedric 1 pose more than I gave Kai. Having said that, if you do it on a math formula, calculator, I would have Cedric winning the prejudging, all the poses. When they came out again, I would have Kai actually winning, it looked like, because they weren't next to each other, most of the poses, if not all. When they were put next to each other for the final call-out, I had Cedric winning 1 pose more than Kai was winning. And then actually, I hate Kai Greene's routines, but I like this one. And I thought that it was extremely entertaining. Extremely high energy, because Kai does like high energy routines and then like bogus, like just like 40% energy routines. I thought it was a killer routine. I thought it got engaged with the audience. I think it was different than just standing on his head and spreading, his, legs. And it just was, I thought, innovative. It was really up tempo. So, at the end of the day, I would probably go on the physique department. I would give the edge to Cedric. But when you factor in the posing, even though Cedric had a good routine, I can walk away from that show and say, yeah, you factor everything in, Kai wins. When I made the prediction, of course, I was predicting bodies.
Right.
Not routines.
Of course. Let's go to Lonnie Teper. Lonnie, you had probably the best view of any of us standing up on stage, emceeing, and doing a great job of that. How did you come away with it as far as the decision, Cedric or Kai? What did you think?
I thought it could have gone either way after the prejudging. Cedric's got a beautiful physique, 6'2", 6'3", about 265, great lines, small waist. All of we already know about him. I don't think Kai was as off as the people were saying he was. Looked like he was a tad off. I thought he was much better at the night show. I thought he tightened up. And again, we're talking about this new posing round. Now, the interesting thing is I saw a video with Steve Weinberger that said the posing round had nothing to do with it. Kai was just better. I'm writing my column right now on my report of the show, and I'm thinking the posing round had to have had something to do. That was, to me, was a major difference. And if you count the posing round like they say they're doing now, and I thought Kai had a superior posing routine, I would have given this contest to Kai Greene without question. That said, Cedric McMillan did a show a week earlier in Poland, and I was really impressed on the way he held things together. That wasn't right around the corner. And that showed me something that I hadn't really seen before. And he seems to be finally putting this package together. And if he puts that package together, I think not only does Kai Greene have trouble beating him,
That's a good point. We're going to get into that later on in the show. Let's bring in Dave Palumbo. Final word on this. Cedric or Kai? Dave, what say you?
I went back and I looked at everything again. And I came up with a couple conclusions. Number one, I think the posing round is good to score. But I just felt like a third was too valuable to give the posing round and we know the scores. If there was no posing round and it was 50-50, Kai still would have won by 1 point. So I don't have a problem with Kai Greene winning. Matter of fact, Kai looked damn good at night the reason why Kai was vulnerable at the show was because Cedric was so much better. People are forgetting that Cedric raised his game up and he made Kai look bad. If Cedric wasn't there, Kai would have unanimously won this show because he's so much better than everyone. Cedric raised his game up, made Kai look bad. Now, the way I would have liked to seen it scored, now that I have time to kind of assimilate this a little bit, the prejudging is always worth 50%. It always has been. I don't know why they've changed it. It's the symmetry round combined with the mandatory poses. It should stay at 50%. If you want to take the posing round and count it, at the finals, they should make the posing round 25% of your routine, of your score, and the other 25% should be as a reevaluation of the mandatory. So you get 50% at night, 50% in the morning, for a total of 100%. Had they done it that way, I think Cedric would have won the show, because prejudging should always be more valuable. You cannot discount prejudging. People forget that Cedric clearly handled Kai Greene at that prejudging. And I think that the disruption is that it seems like almost the prejudging was dismissed, but it wasn't. When you see the scoring, the way they set it up, Kai Greene won fairly, and I think he looked good at night. And I think that, once again, we might want to evaluate how much we give to that posing round. I think 25% would have been enough, and 25% for the mandatories at night, keeping the prejudging at 50%.
So let's talk about that. The 1/3 of the score that was designated to the posing round. John, let's go to you on this one first. Did you think that was a good idea? Of course, this is it's an experimental module right now to have that 1/3 designated to the posing round. What did you make of it? Was it a good idea or not?
It's a good idea. It's nice to see the guys posing and the judges not looking down, for a change. But I agree with Dave. I think it counts too much. I think it should definitely count, but maybe 25%, maybe 20%. I don't know. It should definitely count. But you don't want to turn this into, a vaudeville show. I mean, so that the guys are, starting to discount body parts because they can make it up on their posing routine. So when it's weighted that heavily, I think that's what you're seeing. Although I think because it was weighted that heavily, Kai gave us an amazing performance. That was probably the best posing routine I ever saw. So, and if there's anybody out there in the pros right now that can put together a posing routine to wow the crowd and draw people into the sport, it's Kai Greene. So I think the incentive at that percentage was probably what gave us that greater routine. But I think they need to discount it a little bit more, because I think it's 1/3 is just too much.
What would you think is a fair designation for the posing round?
I think 20%. I think 50% counts as, like Dave said, prejudging is 50%. It always has. It always should be. I mean, sometimes I think prejudging should count a little more. But if you got 50 at prejudging, 25 opposing routine, and 25 for the final comparisons, I think that's a more equitable separation of the points. I think to make it 1/3, you got to pull from somewhere else, and I just think that's too much.
Chris, let's go to you on this one. What did you make, first of all, of the posing round having 1/3, just as far as it being a module for the overall scoring? And do you think 1/3 is a fair scoring percentage? If not, what do you think it should be?
I don't like that they're judging the scoring. I mean, judging the posing, because I've said it before. I don't want Biggie Smalls coming in and smashing that round and beating Kai. I mean, because that's the conundrum we're going to get ourselves in at some point, where the crowd's going to go wacky for someone like Fred Smalls, puts together some crazy routine, and then he ends up 9th anyway. I think if you're talking math and equations and 1/3, 1/3, 1/3, I agree wholeheartedly with Dave. The prejudging is, in all these shows, needs to be weighted more, because there's something called pressure and there's something called choking. And a lot of bodybuilders and coaches, they just can't take the prejudge. There's just too much of this massive buildup and pressure running into a prejudging, and you see someone, how many times have the last 2 years, last year's Mr. Olympia, Phil was flat as a pancake, and the year before. Why? I don't know. Is some of it pressure, the burden of having to be even better than ever? to make an impression. But once that pressure's gone, some people can come back for the night show, like Phil, and they look night and day different than the next night, than the prejudging. And if that's going to be scored 50-50, you know what? You got to have some type of part of the show where it's really counts more than the rest of the show, because that is where people like all of us listening to the show, we go to the prejudging and we're at the edge of our seats. We want to see how people come out. We want to see how they look. We're on the edge of our seats. People come out and we know immediately, oh, they're off, right? Like, oh, he's off. Or wow, this guy, the second he comes on, he's crazy on. And then, they might come out the next day looking totally different. So you got to decide on which part of that show is more important. And I think it's the judging part, because that's what we are most interested in, because that's what's best lit, right? The prejudging for the Mr. Olympia and the prejudging for the Arnold, it's lit clear as day. The night show at the Arnold and the night show at the Olympia, it's for the sponsors, it's for the pomp and circumstance, it's for the excitement. You got thousands of little bright lights going all over the place, the light changing front, back. I mean, you don't really, really, really know, what someone's physique looks like exactly because of the lighting issue. And, we can talk about that too in the 212s with the drastic different, variance in light. But, I think just that the prejudging still should be giving at least 50% of the vote. Some part of the night show, part of the vote, and, personally scrap the posing in terms of a judgment call, make it a money call, give Kai an extra 40 grand for winning the posing, give Cedric 20 for second, and give Biggie Smalls third for whatever. 30 grand for third.
So John Romano had it at a fair 20%. Chris says it should be scrapped from the judging panel altogether. Lonnie, where do you stand on this as far as whether or not the posing round was a good idea and whether or not it should count for a third of the overall score?
It doesn't count for a third. On paper, it does. But if anybody saw the video that Jim Mannion did when they first talked about this, when he was in Ohio, discussing the show with the Lorimers, he said, it kind of quickly, he says, we've always judged the posing in round 3. And he told the bodybuilders, don't worry about this. Don't think they have to go out and be this tremendous performer. So on paper, maybe it says it's counting the third. I don't think they counted the third. And what Steve Weinberger said after the show is, when he was interviewed, is that it had nothing to do with the posing. He said Kai was just way better at night, and he won the show.
Dave, let's get you.
That's what Weinberger said.
Dave, let's get you on the final word on the posing round. Where do you stand on it as far as having it as a third of the overall judging panel, as we discussed? And do you think it was a good idea or is a good idea?
Well, Lonnie, I interviewed Steve Weinberg. I don't know if you saw them. You might not have seen the video. We put it up on rxmuscle.com yesterday. And we went through each round, and we went through all the bodybuilders. And basically, Cedric won the prejudging 6 points to 9. Kai won the night show 5 points to 10. So if you got rid of the posing round, Kai would have won by a point because he did a little better at the night show than Cedric did at the prejudging. The night show routine was judged at a third of the score. I think it's a little too much because it can kind of sway the decisions too much. But had Cedric won the posing round, he would have won the contest, even though Kai did better than him at night. So, it's a mathematical equation. If you don't like mathematical equations, then you shouldn't do it. But if you look at gymnastics and you look at other sports, that combine scores, look at fitness, for instance, it's not always the best physique that wins. The posing does count for something. Do I think it's good to score the posing? As a fan, I love it because the guys spend a lot more time putting together a routine and it makes it more interesting to watch. As a purist bodybuilder, maybe not, because I want to see the best physique win. So the only way to really compromise that is to either do what Chris said, is to make the posing, just a separate contest and give away prize money for that, or just give it less value. Maybe make it, I said 25, maybe make it, 15%.
Hey, did you say it was a 3-point difference after the prejudging?
Yes, it was 3 points. Cedric was winning by 3 points after prejudging.
Yeah, I thought it was 2, but
3.
In any case, that's still pretty close.
Yeah.
It's not like Greene was so far that he wasn't in the hunt at all. It wasn't, to me, it wasn't that much of a difference.
But one judge had
Only
Cedric,
one judge. Yeah, only one judge had Cedric in second, which probably.
So that's not close.
Yeah.
Well, point-wise, it was close.
Let's go on.
It's not close.
I had 2 points.
How about this? Let's say it again, just so you can add clarity to it. No judges except one had Cedric anything but first. So that's not close. If you have a judging panel and you say, "Hi, judges," I'm not saying I disagree that Kai. I thought Kai. I could walk away from the show and say, "Fuck, Kai won." I'm just making the point when someone says, "Oh, it was really close to pre-judging." No, all the judges except
guy's
one.
getting all the first, but the guy in
had
second's
Cedric
right there.
first.
It still could be close. Doesn't mean that he's crushing the second place guy.
All right, let's go on to our next topic. And again, we're talking about close races in the Arnold. We're also talking about the 212, where Hide Yamagishi outlasted Jose Raymond, the 2015 Arnold Classic champ, and really a very strong challenge by David Henry. So, Chris, we're going to go to you first on this one. Good decision or not, with Hide Yamagishi coming away with the 2016 crown, 212.
If they judge the posing by 82.5%, then I agree with the decision. I thought it was a bad decision. I thought that the prejudging went Jose, David Henry, and Hyde. I thought the night show could have gone David Henry, Jose, or Jose, David Henry, then Hyde. I have a nervous factor on my back, and you know what? The lighting was not good in prejudging. It's an expo. I think they should scrap that show from the expo, for God's sakes, and move it to where you can see what's going on, like the open show. But I thought that hurt David Henry, because when David Henry came out for the night show, I thought Jose was still first, but I thought David Henry was right on his ass, and no part of prejudging or no part of the finals did I think Hyde was beating either of them.
Lonnie, let's go to you on this one. What did you make of the 212 division with Hide Yamagishi coming out on top, dethroning last year's champion Jose Raymond and holding off David Henry?
I thought it was between Yamagishi and David Henry. To me, Raymond looked a little off. David Henry has a spectacular physique, but they always say his legs aren't any good. Now, his legs may not be perfect, but I think they're vastly improved over years past, and his upper body is so tremendous. You talk about the aesthetic physique. I thought Hide looked good. Was he good enough to win? I think Chris is right. You count the posing round there, and that's where he wins it. So, that's what Arnold kept on emphasizing, the posing. And of course last year he emphasized the lack of big bellies. And so this kind of cut both ways this year. So, I don't know. I think David Henry was probably the most overlooked guy in the show, even though he got third. I thought he was pretty spectacular.
A lot of people share that opinion. So, John, let's go to you on this one, because I thought that the prevailing opinion was that Jose Raymond came in on. He had the most mass of the three that we've been mentioning, and he had good conditioning. Where do you stand on this? Whereas Lonnie is saying he thought that Jose Raymond came a bit off. Where do you stand on this?
I have an interesting perspective because I was not there. So I'm going by what I've seen online, and pictures. And I think if what I did was lined up the top three photos, that were good digital photos, and I compared to Jose's best, I think Jose was a little off, and I think Hide was. I think I've seen him better too, but David Henry was amazing, and I think David Henry is coming back to some of the, incredibleness that he he's shown us before, I think he was really amazing. And if you look at the photos and you really, study them, and I think, yeah, I agree with Lonnie, maybe his legs could be a little bit better, but overall, I think David Henry was in amazing condition and he looked really good. And I think and Jose could have looked better. So, mass-wise, you can look at Jose and say, yeah, he definitely had, more muscle or appeared to have a lot of muscle for his frame. But I still think I've seen him better. And I think I haven't seen David Henry this good in a long time. And I think if you really look at the photos and you put them next to each other side by side, I think you're going to give David Henry a move up the ranks.
Dave, let's go to you on this one for the final word. 212 division. Hide Yamagishi comes away with a win, but Jose Raymond, again, a lot of controversy as far as whether or not he came on and whether or not he deserved to retain his title. And then David Henry, who we had on live with a couple of weeks before the show, exhibiting all sorts of confidence and really leaning a lot of opinions, saying that he was going to put in a big, strong showing, which he did. Where do you stand in the 212 division?
Well, I think you got to understand this. When you look at David Henry alone, he's the winner. He's got the freakiest muscle. It's clean. He was in great shape. He's a good poser. Alone, he's spectacular. You put him next to Jose Raymond, even Hide Yamagishi, and he looks small. I can't explain it, but the effect is not the same as when he's standing alone. So when people look at his pictures and they say, holy mackerel, this guy's unbelievable, they're right. But he doesn't. The contest is about comparisons. And in comparison, Jose is a lot bigger than David Henry. So that immediately puts Jose ahead of him in my book. Now, Jose is a lot bigger than Hide Yamagishi, and it's most apparent from behind when they hit the back double bicep and the back lat spread, because Hide doesn't have lower lats. Jose does. Jose's is complete from behind. The conditioning level of Jose and Hide were about the same, I would say. Was this Hide's best look ever? I think it might have been. And I think and he was polished looking, his posing was good, his tan was good, his oil was perfect. Jose had some oil issues when he came out of prejudging. I probably would have had Jose Raymond winning that show by a very small margin. I thought Hide had a great posing routine, and I thought that Hide eked it out. And once again, if the judges are going to go with the more aesthetic bodybuilder is the winner in the 212 division, then you know what? Cedric should win in the open division. So there was a lack of consistency between the 212 and the open, and I think that's the problem Chris and I had with the outcome.
Chris, you want to comment on that?
Well,
shut your phone off, whoever phone that is.
I think it's Jay Cutler. It's Jay Cutler texting. If you want me to read the text live, he's telling me how much product he's selling today.
It's like Dookie with Jim Mannion calling.
Yeah, the aesthetics is, it's difficult to mention the name Cedric McMillan and Hide Yamagishi in the same sentence in terms of aesthetics. I would say Hyde is not boxy. I wouldn't say he's got some Sean Ray type flow. And yeah, the contradiction of at the end of the day, they're total different physiques, but you can give the edge to Kai with his circus-looking physique over tremendous aesthetics, probably the best package of aesthetics we've seen since Sean Ray of Flex Wheel in Cedric's look that he brought. And then you go back the night before to Jose, and I guess you would say, Muscle Mania type guy, circus-looking physique, a la Kai Greene, right? Versus Hyde. So they're two contradictions. And, and Hyde is, obviously missing a back. That's the big knock on Hyde is that out of the top 5, he's got the weakest back, right? I mean, Guy's back is better than his back. And Guy's 4th. And Dixon, who was 5th? Dixon?
Yeah.
I mean, his back is thicker than Hyde. So it's funny, all these contradictions, people say, shows a one from the back. No shows the one on aesthetics. No, the one on circus physiques. No, the one on posing routine. So people interject whatever their bias is into it. I just don't see that, Hyde can win over Jose missing body parts and having less level of muscularity, compared to Jose.
Let's go on to the next topic now. The third topic, again, you're watching Iron Debate on rxmuscle.com, sponsored by SciTech Nutrition. Visit scitechnutrition.com. We appreciate all that they did for us in the lead up to the Arnold Classic, of course, on the weekend of the Arnold Classic, and all the support they're going to be providing us as we continue to bring you contest coverage. My apologies, still a little bit under the weather. We'll go on now to our third topic. And again, in the first topic, we were talking about Kai and Cedric and the close battle they had at the very top for the open division. This opens up the conversation now. How do they stack up against a Phil Heath? How do they stack up now if you want to parlay this, translate this to how they would be on the Olympia stage? So Kai showing some vulnerability to Cedric. Cedric, in many opinions, taking overall progression and really solidifying himself in that cream of the crop top 4 that we've all projected for him for some time now. So, Chris Aceto, we're going to go to you first on this one. How do you see Kai Greene, Cedric McMillan, in the form that they showed this past weekend's Arnold Classic, stacking up against, say, a 2015 Phil Heath?
Jay just told me to tell Dave he has the right to interject on Iron Debate, a live question for Lonnie. I'm serious. He wants to know from Lonnie, who's the best ever?
Pardon me?
Uh-oh. Jay is on the line, and he wants to know from Lonnie Teper, who is the best ever?
The best bodybuilder ever?
You're supposed to say Jay Cutler, Lonnie.
Yeah, forget it. Okay, we'll move on. We'll move on.
Jay Cutler, he's coming to my show.
That's right. There you go.
Poses for 1975 guest poser fees. So the question has to do with how Cedric stack up at the Olympia.
How would Cedric and Kai, with the form that they showed at this past weekend's Arnold Classic, stack up against, say, a 2015 Olympia Phil Heath?
I think that I think this Kai actually, has more muscle now than Phil. I think Phil will. The idea that Phil can win the back double bicep against these guys, close that book, dude. You know what I mean? He struggled with Roden and on the lat spread last year he lost to, and he probably lost. And he won the back double, but he wasn't dominant. I compare those poses because if we're talking about Tom Plass, I'd be talking about his legs. So, you know what? Here's what I see is just, I told Dave before the show Cedric was going to press Kai to the max, if not beat him. And I told him this, though. All he needs to do that is get a comparison next to Kai alone. Because, as Dave has already pointed out with the Jose Raymond, David Henry case, it's a contest of comparisons. And when your eye is focused on those two, Kai and Cedric, there's big contrasts, there's big comparisons. And I leave thinking that, prejudging, according to Steve Weinberger too, right? Kai lost both back shots to Cedric. But the reason I thought Kai lost those shots is because Cedric looked like he was 9 feet tall on stage because of his height and flow. I got to think, how is that going to look next to Phil? Phil is getting more of an H shape than a V shape every year. You know what I mean? I mean, his front double bicep is not the same front double bicep that he used to have. And I think going up against Kai, I think Kai brings more wacky muscle per square inch than Phil, which Phil can still pull out. But if you put Cedric on the other side of Phil while you have Kai on the other side, your eye is not necessarily going to go and remain on Phil. You have one guy, who's then you have one guy who looks like he's 9 feet tall but still doesn't look thin, with a ton of muscle and round flowing, and then you got Phil. So it's either Phil destroys them,
Right.
you know, by his contrast, or, you know, beats them, or you get back to this, like, you know, well, in the prejudging I had Kai, and then I had, you know, Cedric in a couple poses, and I had Phil in 2 poses. So it becomes more of a math equation again. You know, it goes right back to, you know, not a unanimous score. And out these 2 in the lineup. Kai was not in the lineup. Cedric was not in the lineup. Phil did not have all first place votes. We know that. Roden had first place votes in prejudging. It's someone we're not even talking about. Roden had first place votes in prejudging. Clarify it. You could, you know, check it with me. You know, Phil always brags that Kai has never got a first place vote off Phil. You know, that's what Phil has told him when he had the meltdown at the you know, press conference. You've never even scored 1 first place vote. So in terms of first place votes, Roden, who wasn't on this stage, has got first place votes.
Right.
I don't see that this physique that Kai brings, or this type of physique that Cedric brings, some judge is going to prefer that and say, I'm going to give you a single first place vote. What that does to the judging is it skews it all over the place. So I think they're both incredibly dangerous in the lineup in the fall.
John, let's go to you on this one. As you saw it, and of course you saw from an outside angle, seeing the Arnold Classic through video and through pictures, from what you saw, do you see Kai and what improvements you've seen out of Cedric? Do you see either one or both of them stacking up decently well, or potentially pushing Phil Heath come September?
I do. And I do because I think Phil's physique is declining as he gets older. I mean, I don't think I've seen him as good as he's. I seem to see his waist getting bigger. I don't think he's bringing it like he used to. So if he's continuing to decline, I see Cedric ascending. I see Kai continuing to improve. But Kai's problem is his waist. His midsection is just out of control. I mean, that thing is enormous. But, you know, and it's hard to rein in. You can see when he turns to the side sometimes. When he lets that thing go, you better not be standing near him. He's going to knock you over. God bless him. But, I mean, that's the story. I mean, if he's got to corral that thing, and if he does, if it's possible, I mean, I think it is. But if he can do that, the rest of him is just so dominant and so amazing and so freaky. Kai from the back is from another freaking planet. You know, that low back and his you know, he's also got, compared to Cedric, Kai has very thick skin. The thickness of the skin itself, not that he's got fat underneath it, but he's got very thick skin compared to, you know, some of the other guys. So, you know, Cedric can look crisper and harder than him, but in reality, that's not the case. So Cedric's got a very tiny midsection. Cedric's improves every single time he comes out, and Kai is hungry as hell. Or at least it sure looked like it from the, not only from the Arnold, but by how big his stomach is. But as these 2 guys come in, I think Phil is in trouble. Unfortunately, we have this unfair advantage of the incumbent champ.
Sure.
And I think that mentality has got to stop, because we don't end up with the champion. We end up with the guy who won last year, wins again this year by virtue of the fact that he won last year, and not that he was better than the other 2 guys on stage. So these 2 guys, from what I saw at the Arnold, now again, I wasn't there, and I'm just going by videos and pictures, and of course the commentary of my esteemed colleagues here. But I think if the pressure can be brought from what was contained in the Olympia and the Arnold weekend this time, and it progresses into the Olympia, Cedric continues to improve, Kai continues to bring it. What's Phil going to do? I mean, he has not improved in 4 years. So unless he's going to make some miraculous turnaround and change his physique back to where it was, I see him in trouble if that, you know, incumbent advantage is mitigated, and it should be. It's not fair. Is the posing going to count more heavily at the Olympia as it did at the Arnold? That's another point of contention. So I don't know. But physique for physique, I think Phil is in trouble if Kai and Cedric keep bringing it the way they brought it at the Arnold.
Lonnie, you had the best view of us all. The way you saw Kai and Cedric on that Arnold stage, do you see them as prospects to push Phil Heath come the Olympia?
Of course, and throwing a guy named Dexter Jackson, too, who may have a little shot. Everybody's kind of forgot about him. My feeling about Heath is I agree. I've been saying that Heath's best was 2011. A lot of people disagreed. I don't think he's been better in the last 5 years. That doesn't mean he can't bring it again this year. And, you know, there's so many X factors involved. Is Heath going to be at his best again? Is Cedric going to be even more improved than he was at the Arnold? Can Dexter be as good or a little bit better than he was last year? Sean Roden can stand with any of these people. He's got a beautiful physique. Talk about aesthetics. There's so many factors. You know, as of right now, I got to make Heath he's the defending champion, and John says it's hard to beat the defending champion. He's going in as a favorite, but I don't know. It's not an overwhelming favorite to me. And what I'm wondering, probably this question's for Chris, is how many more shows is Cedric McMillan going to do prior to the Olympia?
Chris, you want to answer that?
I think he'll probably do Australia, and that's it.
Okay.
Yeah, I hope that's good, I think, because, you know, like I said, I was really impressed the way he held it from Poland to Columbus. Then Australia is only a week and a half away, or next weekend, actually, a week away. So he'll have plenty of time. I don't know. This guy's dangerous, man. You look at this guy, I look at him on stage, and I say to myself, man, he's got height. He's got enough muscle. He's got pretty lines. He's got a small
How's
waist.
his gut?
He really does have it all. And when you say that, you know, Kai Greene, but it's hard to kind of fathom having more muscle than Cedric McMillan does at 265 pounds or whatever he is. And at that height, I think that height actually should be an advantage. It ends up probably being a disadvantage because the smaller guys are easier to put on mass. But I think when you're looking at the whole look, the entire aesthetic look, and especially if you're talking about what Arnold's talking about, I think Cedric McMillan's the guy that has that physique.
So, Dave, let's go to you on the final run of this one. Let's concentrate on Kai and Cedric. And again, we bring up the conversation of how they would fare given what they showed this past weekend against, say, a 2015 Phil Heath. And, of course, projecting forward going into September, how do you see these two, Kai and Cedric, after everything we saw over the last year or so and then we saw this weekend, how potentially they could stack up against Phil Heath come September?
Well, I was at the 2015 Olympia, and Phil was not at his best. And the fact that Dexter almost beat him, okay, at 46 years old or whatever he is a testament to that. The two guys that were missing from the lineup were Cedric McMillan and Kai Greene, ironically enough, who looked amazing at this show. And given how they looked at the Arnold at the night show, both of them would have beat Phil, in my estimation, in 2015. I think he would have been slaughtered, to be honest with you. Now, I have to preface that because Cedric McMillan is probably one of the most gifted bodybuilders on the planet. He's also one of the most inconsistent bodybuilders on the planet. So you can't take his way he looked here in Columbus and say, all right, when he brings that to the Olympia in September, he's going to beat Phil Heath, because who the hell knows what he's going to look like at the Olympia? Last year, he didn't even make it to the stage because he got a peanut allergy or something like that, and he wound up in the hospital with some kind of having to get some kind of respiratory help.
Anaphylactic shock.
Yeah, so Cedric is a wild card. Kai's another one who's the most inconsistent guy you've ever seen. He can't bring it. He can bring it to the Arnold. He can bring it to New York Pro. He can't bring it to the Olympia. And guess what, guys? The Olympia is contested in Las Vegas. And guys, if you can't bring it to the Mr. Olympia contest, you can't win. So Phil Heath somehow finds a way to win every single year. So a betting man wouldn't bet against Phil, but I tell you this, the way Kai looked, the way Cedric looked at this Arnold Classic, Phil wouldn't have a chance against him.
This is going to bring us to our last topic, and we're going to split this into three. They're going to be three quick hitters. Now, of course, this isn't the beginning of 2016, but for all intents and purposes, it is the beginning of the 2016 contest season. So we're going to kick it off with who the men's open bodybuilder breakout star of 2016. One name. Chris Aceto, who do you think is going to be that name?
Well, I have to backtrack. because I thought Max Charles was already the breakout. I thought he demolished Branch Warren in every aspect of what you call bodybuilding. That should be a whole separate topic for us to discuss. Branch Warren and
Max Charles.
Max Charles. The other guy who's going to probably be a breakout is the guy who looks like Matt Damon. What's the guy who's like 400 pounds?
Dallas McCarver?
Yeah, Dallas McCarver, and maybe
Slaughtered Branch Warren. So I want to see him do it. That's my pick.
Lonnie Teper, who do you think is going to be that breakout star in the men's bodybuilding open class for 2016?
Well, he maybe already has been broken out. Josh Lenardowitz from
good call.
Australia
Absolutely.
won the San Marino and the Ferrigno Legacy back-to-back in November when he told me he was going to do the Lonnie Classic and the Arnold. I said, you can't stay in shape that long, but I certainly was wrong about that. He got second to Cedric in Poland, and I thought he was a deserving third in Columbus. I wasn't sure until I looked at a lot of pictures, but the guy's got a pretty impressive physique. I think he's only 27, 28 years old. He's a big kid, and he's I don't know. I put him in a top 10 Olympia probably.
Lenardowitz certainly turning a lot of heads at the Arnold Classic. Dave, who do you think is going to be the 2016 Breakout Bodybuilder of the Year?
BR. Big BR. Big Rami. I think a lot of people are going to forget about him because he's not really competing this year. He's under the guidance now of Chris Aceto. I think he's going to be coming into the Olympia, and he's going to shock the shit out of everyone. And he might be the guy that we're all talking about as the next. Big Rami is going to float under the radar all year until the Olympia, and I think he's going to be the breakout star of the 2016.
I was just going to say, this is probably the first episode of Iron Debate where there was no mention of Big Rami till about the 53-minute mark of the episode. That is amazing. So now that we asked about the open for the breakout star of 2016, who is going to be the biggest bust of 2016? Lonnie Teper, who do you think is going to be the biggest bust of 2016 in the men's open bodybuilding class?
Wow. It's pretty early to make that call. I don't know who I would pick. I mean, I don't know. Branch got beat in Poland. He was 5th in Columbus. Should he have been 5th in Columbus? Ahead of Max Charles? I don't think so. I don't know if you can call him a bust. He's 40, 41 years old. He always battles back. Will he be a top 6 Olympia contender? I think that's going to be tough. And if he falls out of the top 6, if he's 8th or 9th or 10th, and you consider that a bust, maybe that. But I don't know. It's too early to tell at this point.
Chris Aceto, your bust for the 2016 contest season.
I don't want anyone except Hanny. Hanny. That was a Freudian slip. I guess Hanny and George. No, but the fact is you don't want to wish bad on anyone, and you don't want to predict busts. You know what I mean? You really don't. And even when you have a competitor, quote, have someone in a contest and they go up against someone who looks unbelievable, there's still a part of you that you want to go up and give that guy tremendous compliments, say you look crazy. You just don't do it. Show, and we all laugh at them, but you never know what's behind a bust. It could be marriage difficulties. That's usually leading factors to.
But you know what? If you want to answer that question, he's gone. Okay, so John Romano, thank you. Awesome as always.
How come I couldn't have gone before that question?
Oh,
I was the first one to ask that question, man. I agree with Chris, man. I can't call somebody the biggest bust.
Right.
We don't know until the end of the year. And I agree. Let's talk about who's going to win it, not who's going to lose it.
I got the biggest bust already. We already saw it. Justin Compton.
Oh.
Justin Compton, biggest bust of 2016. I was predicting he was going to win the show. I thought he came in. I thought he looked all right at prejudging. I thought he looked terrible at the night show. To me, biggest disappointment of 2016 already.
Dave.
Who knows? I don't even remember it because his physique was really hurting at night.
Finally, the best nickname of bodybuilders that we have out there. Now, we have, obviously, Big Ramy, which many people forget is actually a nickname. So you have Big Ramy, you have the Predator, you have Flexitron, you have about 4 bodybuilders named Giant Killer. You have Predator, I don't know if I mentioned that one. Dave, which other ones am I missing out here?
Well, Lonnie is the one who names everyone. So
Oh, that's right.
I would like to know Lonnie's newest nicknames that he's on the horizon.
I like it. What do you have for Josh Leonardo, which you mentioned him, the Australian?
Very good lately. I came up with one in Columbus. I think Dave gave me a courtesy laugh. I said, Evan Almighty Senapon.
I like
Love it.
That was awesome, yeah. Now you call...
Okay, that's it.
Okay, so Yamagishi, I think, didn't you call him the Asian
Sensation?
Ah, very nice. What about for Josh Leonardowicz? I mean, there's so many tie-ins, Australian, Aussie,
Yeah, the
Down
Thunder
Under.
from Down Under.
Ah, this guy's the master. That's why they.
Lonnie's not telling you the one nickname that I love the best that he gave me, and I'm gonna reveal it, Lonnie, because it's too good not to let out to the public.
Who did I give the nickname
The
to?
Justin Compton nickname.
Oh,
you
No,
got.
he said you can't repeat it.
I'm repeating it. I don't care. The Vanilla Gorilla. Vanilla Gorilla.
Well,
I
I
love it.
asked him, and he said, absolutely do not say that.
It's the greatest nickname. Why wouldn't he like it? It's amazing. Vanilla
He thought it
Gorilla.
was very offensive.
I would like who named him that? Lonnie?
Yeah.
I would
No,
like him to
somebody
take
called me.
some diversity training,
Yeah, somebody
diversity
called me
sensitivity
and asked-
training.
and said, I know
Personally.
you give nicknames. How about the Vanilla Gorilla or Silverback? And I said, I think that's kind of offensive. And I said, what I'll do is I'll ask Justin myself. I don't want to get a surprise. You don't have 260
The
pounds.
Vanilla Gorilla. Come on, man. That's great.
On that note,
He said, I will never talk to you again if you use that nickname.
Oh well.
I'll use it.
There is,
It's all right. He's not talking to me anyway.
He may not talk to Palumbo anymore after giving him the
No.
bust of the year.
You know what? I think the Vanilla Gorilla is catchy. You got to have something catchy. You don't always have to like your own nickname. Everyone wants to have like the Mass with Class, the Predator. Sometimes
The
it's cool to
master
have,
of disaster.
I mean, Jumbo Palumbo
Jumbo
was a good
Palumbo.
nickname, but I mean, it wasn't like it could have been Dumbo Palumbo, and then I would have had to take Dumbo Palumbo. But Vanilla Gorilla is great because he is like a gorilla, and he's white. I mean, let's face it.
Well, he was adamant about it. If you would have seen him, he had steam coming out of his ears.
Well, you better come up with a new one. Maybe Yosemite Sam with the Steve.
Well, I already got the new one now. After today's show, Justin the Bus Compton.
Oh, that's worse.
The Bus. No, I'm just joking. I'm not calling him that.
Bustin' Justin. How about that one?
What was that?
Bustin' Justin.
Well, let's give the kid a little more time. He's 27.
27 exactly.
No, I'm still very high on Justin Compton. I got to be honest with you. I think he's got the most potential
What's
of
he
any.
doing next? Do you know? Oh, he's doing Australia.
Yeah, he'll be better.
Let's see if he can bounce back. It's a pretty good field in Australia, aren't the main guys going?
Yeah.
It's a rematch. As Steve Weinberger built it, it's Frazier Ali again.
Oh, it's
Well,
the
from
same
down
lineup,
under.
basically, huh?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, let's call that right now. Who wins Australia?
Chris? I say Repeat by Kai Greene.
Kai's usually better for a second show, and I'm not there, so it's it changes the dynamic.
Can you do Skype counseling with the Cedric over the computer?
Skype.
Skype counseling,
Yeah, we should broadcast it live with Chris Aceto, RX Muscle, counseling with the bodybuilders.
Johnny will have Cedric on his computer on Skype, and we can record the whole thing.
Dave, let me ask you this question. Instead of you already predicted Kai's going to win. Where's Justin Compton going to finish in this lineup? Second chance.
Third.
He won't be he won't be the Australian kid.
Exactly. You
You
have
don't
the
think so?
Australian in his hometown.
No, you know what it is? I'm telling you right now. Justin Compton in the lineup from behind oddly does not look big. It crushes him. Does that make sense?
He's stacked up against a bunch of good Olympia guys. I mean, Cedric and conditioning, lack of it, or whatever happened to him is why he lost to Leonardowicz. I think after prejudging in the beginning, he was clearly in third.
Yeah, you might be right.
And then
You
he
might be
fell.
right. You might be
So
right.
I think
you know,
Compton.
no, you know what's happening, Dave? Is I told you in the beginning of the show, it was like 3 shows. Prejudging was a show, the night show was a show, and the posing was a show. And what I remember, and I was way too hard on Justin, I owe him an apology, is he looked like a disaster at the night show, and that's what I remember.
But he was good at prejudging.
Right?
He wasn't bad.
Yeah, he looked good at prejudging.
He admitted he was a little better last year here.
He should have looked. If he looked like he did in Orlando when he won the Orlando Europa show 2 years ago.
Wait, Lonnie, I liked him last year. I mean,
He thought that he was a little better last year. When I saw him after the show, he said, I did a couple things wrong. I got to tweak it. I actually thought I looked a little better last year.
Chris predicted before the show. Chris predicted that Justin was his waist was going to be blown out and he was going to overcarb. I don't know if that's what he did, but it looked like that's what he did. So you might be the new Swami, Chris.
well, you know what? I'll take the nickname. How's that? The technician. I just don't want any lawsuits, Lonnie. I can feel one coming from George soon.
I think Compton still, there's going to be a problem with that stomach situation. He's got to, he wants to be a bigger and bigger and bigger guy, and I don't know if he can do that with positive results. I think he should be a little lighter.
Yeah, I agree.
So on that note, we will end this episode of Iron Debate, breaking down everything that happened last weekend at the Arnold Classic. A reminder, next weekend, the Arnold Australia RX Muscle will have full coverage of the show. Our producer, Johnny Styles, is going to be flying over there next week, so we're going to bring you great coverage, interviews, and, of course, all the wrap-ups of all the divisions.
The freaking Ricans going to Australia?
Oh, so now Johnny's a freaking Rican?
Styles Down Under. That's going to be the name of the coverage.
Can't wait for your report, John. You're going to do all the call-outs and everything, huh?
For Johnny Styles, Dave Palumbo, Chris Aceto, John Romano, and Lonnie Teper, I'm Sadiq Faruqi. We'll see you next time.